Welcome to the Renegade Nutrition Podcast, where we discuss all things wellness.
I'm Eleni Welch, nutritionist.
And I'm Kay Boyer, health enthusiast. Welcome back, Renegades.
Welcome, Renegades.
Welcome. I'm excited today to interview Catherine. We're already friends. I've never known you until now, but already I'm like, we're going to be friends. I can tell. And I'm interested for this podcast today, both professionally on here, but personally too. I'm interested with what your business that you work at, what it does. I'll get into that later, but I'm excited for this.
Yes. Welcome to the Renegade Nutrition Podcast, Catherine. We have Catherine Staffieri with us today. She is the nutrition manager at Nutrisense, which is a company that does some continual blood glucose monitoring. So we're going to talk all today about blood glucose monitoring, why that's important, why you should care.
Yes. And not only if you have diabetes, everyone should care.
Absolutely, why everyone should care. Mm-hmm. So Catherine is going to give us the rundown on all of that good stuff. But first of all, welcome to the Renegade Nutrition Podcast, Catherine.
Welcome.
Thank you, Eleni. Thank you, Kay. I'm really excited to be here. This is my favorite topic to talk about, so I'm excited to share it with your audience. I think it'll be really fun.
Awesome.
Yes. Okay, so I love the personal stories. So Eleni and I wondered how you got into this business, what kind of made you be more on the holistic path of health, and then do you personally use the glucose? I mean, do you have diabetes, or do you use it for yourself, or is it mainly to help others? Like, just tell us about you.
Totally. So this is a second career for me. I'll start all the way back at the beginning. I was in school not for anything related to nutrition. I frankly didn't even know that I'm a registered dietitian now. I didn't even know that really existed. And I worked in finance for many, many, many years and realized that it was just not fulfilling to me. And I was lucky enough to be able to make a career change. So basically I realized, I would open up the newspaper back when there was actual newspapers.
Yes.
Or I would go online and I was only reading articles about food, about science, about recipes, about that kind of stuff. And I was not paying at all attention to what's happening in the markets or business stuff. So I kind of thought like, if I could make a change, what would I want to do? Was lucky enough to end up in a program about nutrition education, became a registered dietitian. And then if anyone in your audience is a registered dietitian or nutritionist, you know that you wear 9 million hats. You're working here, you're working there, you have a private practice, you do that, it's you're sort of in many different ways. So I worked clinically in a hospital doing very traditional dietetics, which again that is snoozy.
Yeah. Slow death. Yeah.
But you meet these really, really engaging people. I mean, like these people are so passionate about, kind of what they do, and you truly want to help people. And then, I had a private practice, I had all this stuff. And luckily it was kind of a little bit post-COVID, post sort of quarantine. I was just looking at websites, really just job postings on websites. I mean, it was so random. And I saw a job posting for Nutrisense and I was like, okay, let's see what this is all about. Because in this field of nutrition, as you said, there's sort of your traditional, conventional way of going about disseminating nutrition information. And then there's everything else. And I was really interested in the everything else. Because it can't just be a prescription. It can't just be a formula. Not everyone fits into that one small meal plan that you've been given to hand out, that low sodium meal plan, and as anyone that does any type of counseling or knows, it is very hard to make someone to adhere to something like that unless they buy into it. So I was really interested in the why, the how to make this bigger and better. And Nutrisense was this great platform to reach thousands and thousands and thousands of people from my house. So I think what is so special about being able to use a platform like Nutrisense, and I could go into that a little bit more, is just that, you can take your private practice and you just see the people in your town. But when you're working on a platform like this through an app-based platform, you can reach, all over the country and frankly, all over the world. So it's been awesome. And I am currently wearing a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, but that's just because I love to geek out out with the data.
Your numbers girl. Yep.
I love it. And I am not a diabetic. So this is really just for my own health betterment. And that's really what we're trying to get out to our audience for Nutrisense.
I love that. Now, tell us a little bit about what Nutrisense does as a company, and then I'd like to get into sort of the guts of why it matters and how we use that data. But just tell us what makes Nutrisense a good standout company.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people sometimes say, like, I don't even know what is the GCM or the MCG. They don't even know what it is that we're sort of talking about. So a continuous glucose monitor is a little device. It's about the size of a quarter. It's a little disc, and it has a small little filament, a little sensor in the middle of it. And you insert it in the back of your arm, and it is continuously monitoring your glucose.
Is there a needle inside of it? Not a needle?
So needle is the wrong word.
Okay.
It uses, when you insert it in, it's sort of like a that you put in, you sort of like on the back of your arm. And I believe there's a needle involved in that, in the insertion part. But while it's in there, it's just like a little bendy filament thing. Like
So it doesn't hurt.
I've seen a lot of videos of people doing them, and it doesn't ever seem like it hurts.
No.
Okay. No. Okay, because that was my big scary thing.
It hurts more to take like a finger stick on your finger than it does to put this on the back. And frankly, people forget that they have it on, and then they'll knock it off, or they'll they're putting their sports bra on and it comes popping off. So people, you can remember that it's on there.
Okay, good.
So we don't make the sensors. The sensors are, we use the Abbott Freestyle Libre sensor. So you might have seen their ads on television. They advertise. So we don't make the hardware, but we make the software. We have an app, the Nutrisense app, which is amazing. I love it. And I'm not just, I'm not, I am a member of the company, but it's really incredible. And what we offer through that app that distinguishes us from our competitors is the dietitian nutritionist support. So everyone that signs up with us gets 1 month of complimentary nutrition support. And that is so key, we think, to using this product to its fullest ability to meet your health goals, right? Everyone is using this because they have a health goal. It can be anything, right? But you're coming to us and you're getting accountability, you're getting support, you're getting education, because you are matched one-on-one with a dietitian nutritionist who can help you navigate all of this data and how to really put it into play and use it. So that's what we offer. We offer kind of like, the hand holding, we offer the app with a bunch of bells and whistles, and you get the hardware as well. So it's a pretty special deal, I think.
So cool. I'm sure Kay and I are going to finish this episode and she's going to be like purchasing one before she leaves my house.
I know. I was already wanting, details. We can get to this at the end, but how much a month, how long do people usually stay on it? Is it like 1 month you can get a ton of data, or you're like, this is more of like you need to try a 3 month, or you need like a good 6 month or a year? What do you think? Or forever?
Or what if we talk just first? What if we do cover some of those? What do you think, Kay?
No, you're right.
If we talk first about kind of why we would want to monitor our blood glucose continuously. True. Why does that matter?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that and then get into the nitty gritties at the end.
At the end, we'll do nitty gritties because I am interested.
Kay is very much our action-oriented person. So she's always like, I don't care about all the details of why. I just want to know what I have to do. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, there's details. So good.
Tell us why we need to do this.
I hear you. I'm both, right? I mean, you got to know what you're doing. So why does it matter? I get that a lot, particularly when people say, I don't have diabetes. I don't have prediabetes. I didn't have gestational diabetes. Like, this is only for diabetics. I hear you, understand you, but not true. I like to compare this to a window into your body. And I'm like, who doesn't want to know what's going on inside your body in real time right now? Anyone can benefit from this. Again, we get people that come to us that are, your sort of traditional biohackers, but we get women that are going through perimenopause. They're like, what's going on in my body? And I'm like, well, put a CGM on and we can see, you can extrapolate from this data many other things, right? So you can build upon this to see like, how is your body responding to all of these environmental aspects in your life. We get athletes. We get, people looking for weight loss. We get people that have cardiac diagnoses. We get people with GI issues. We have people with autoimmune issues, right? So everyone's kind of coming to us. And I say, all of this data is relevant to help you feel better. Like it could be low energy, it could be poor sleep. As long as you are collecting this data, you can make actionable changes to feel better. And we like to kind of compare it to short-term, long-term. You could literally put the device on, wear it for like 48 hours, maybe 72, like 3 days. And you could all of a sudden start to make changes. You could be sleeping better. You could be having more energy in the afternoon. Like you can all of a sudden see things that you normally wouldn't. If you're tracking calories, like how applicable is that, right? And how frustrating is it that you're like, nothing's changing or, you're not seeing the impact it's having on your body, but you can absolutely see what your salad is having on your body, the impact of your oatmeal is having on your body, and the impact of your wine and sushi is having on your body today. Right. And so I think that's really helpful for people is that like, this is happening in real time. This isn't just like, I think I had this many calories of this, or I think my macros were that, but like, who even know, this is real time. And this shows you how your body is feeling. You can layer on top of this data. How are you feeling? How much energy do you have? Like, all that kind of stuff plays together. So we really, I like to say anyone can benefit from this at any stage in your life because it's really a tool to see what's happening, right now. I also like to say, we love everyone to go and get their labs done, go get your annual physical, but that's one moment in time. I mean, how impactful is it to know like, yeah, you were doing really well on Tuesday in October, like, okay, right.
Yeah.
How about the other 364 days of the year? I feel like garbage. Like I felt really great that day. Too bad that was the day of my physical, And so this is a way for you also in the longer term are able to see patterns and trends of your body over time, particularly for women with their cycles and with various stressors in their lives, holidays, that kind of stuff. You can see how your body is responding to these kinds of things over a longer period of time. And when you see those trends, you can make actionable changes based on the trends in your body.
So cool.
So Elaine's a nutritionist and I'm the civilian here. So walk me through it a little bit. So it's continuously monitoring glucose and glucose only. Is that right? So
Correct.
then you're able to take the knowledge of like how high your glucose spikes or how long it's high and that kind of data. Would I be able to look at the knowledge and be like, wow, and make adjustments? Or is that why you want the coach to kind of be like, hey, Kay, compared to the other people, man, your glucose is high longer, or why didn't you spike here? Or is that kind of, how could I make sense of the knowledge, I guess? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we have a lot of education in our app, like for self-guided folks who just kind of want to, learn on their own, or they already know that they want to look at brown rice versus white rice, or they already kind of know the things that they want to do. But I think there's so many nuances that we are very well versed in glucose management that in particular we can say, okay, this is your health goal. I can help you to get there by doing XYZ that you might not have thought of. I mean, when I first started, I didn't know half the things that I knew now. And, I was an RD and had been, practicing. And so I was like, oh, no way. And the evidence-based advice that we have is really, really deep and profound. We have people on our team that are really into sports and performance and have worked with athletes, high level athletes, right? They really know how to fuel around your glucose. We have a lot of women on our team who are really into women's health and can help, manage that menopause transition and how hormones are impacting your glucose. So yes, the layperson can be like, look at that banana, look what it did.
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't do that again. But
Yep.
we can say, well, do you love bananas? If you love bananas, here's how we can have bananas so that it doesn't look, quite so dire.
Sure.
Yes. My and I saw on a list of questions we need to ask you was about like Hashimoto's or thyroid something, which my husband has. And so his doctor told him, like, for instance, if he eats, okay, let me think, it's veggies, protein, and then sugar, it doesn't spike as high. Does this ring true?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
like those tricks of eating that we would have no idea, which would be helpful then for you to have a coach involved with your eating, because they could kind of help you with that. Because that's something that I was like, never would have thought that would help your glucose.
Definitely. There's lots of little like tips or tricks or hacks, that kind of stuff that we can help you with. But also we can be the accountability and the motivator. People, like it's one thing to know to do that. It's another thing to actually do it. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you have that person, the way the interaction goes is messaging within the app. So it's all like text-based chat. And so if you have that person that is like looking at your data, like is right there with you, that you can message in the day and be like, oh, I'm going out to dinner, I don't know what to do. Like you have this person helping you, be accountable and make those changes and really see the difference. That's where it's like the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
When you do counseling or whatever it is, I can hand you a meal plan. I can tell you what to do. But by the time Friday rolls around, you have forgotten everything I said. Right.
Yep.
So this is a way for you to really have someone there that's like, you can do this. This is our plan. I can't wait to see what it looks like, and it really makes you feel empowered.
Yes. And then the proof is in the pudding with like the monitor. And it's like that immediate feedback of like, oh yeah, I'm going to listen because look what happened. I can look at it right now. And that's really cool. Science is bananas that we can have that at our fingertips. Like 2023 is cool.
Yeah. And so for like our average lay person listener who's wondering why they should care about monitoring their blood glucose, I know this is a huge topic, but high level, why is it important to know what our blood glucose is doing and what can it be an indicator of health wise?
Yeah, for sure. So when we're looking at we're looking at, like you said, you're just looking at glucose data, but we can extrapolate from that as to what your body is doing when presented with, say, a higher carbohydrate load. And we can follow those trends and patterns to see, is your body struggling to handle a glucose load? And that can indicate insulin resistance, which is a term a lot of people are becoming more familiar with, which can then be a precursor or leading edge to like a pre-diabetes or a diabetes diagnosis, right? So all of this stuff is really, like we were talking about before, holistic medicine or not your traditional medicine, is that we're really looking to prevent disease states, right? So monitoring our glucose, making sure that our body is performing as it should, able to handle the foods that we're eating, shows that we can prevent disease later on. And so there's a lot of different studies that when you see high levels of glucose, when you see this insulin resistance, it can be, you put you at higher risk for cardiac disease, higher risk for certain cancers, higher risk for really anything related to inflammation, because that's what it is. When your body is handling this higher glucose load, it's putting yourself in a state of inflammation. And so obviously that can be systemic and can present itself in many different ways. If you are already struggling with an inflammatory state, like you're autoimmune and you don't have it, under control, this is only exacerbating it, right? And so being able to help tamp that down to bring your body back into that homeostasis, where everything, sometimes we compare it to like a, traffic system, like the traffic should be flowing, right? Like the glucose comes in, your body's able to handle it, your cells are using it up, right? Like the traffic is flowing. When the traffic is not flowing and your glucose is hanging out at high levels, your body isn't able to take it in and use it up. Like that's when the system's getting gunked up and you're getting that inflammation. And over time, this can lead to a higher risk of chronic disease. So again, it's that short-term, long-term. Long-term, you want to pay attention to this for your longevity, for your health. for prevention of disease. Short term, you want to pay attention to this so that I promise you will feel better. Everyone's like, oh, I don't think it matters. I was like, it matters. I promise you'll feel better. So, once you start to learn what's going on in your body.
Now, what are some things people might be dealing with symptom-wise that could be an indicator that maybe their blood glucose is not being well controlled?
I think, it sounds a little funny right now because I think we're all pretty tired.
Yeah, sure.
It's that time of year. Yeah. But I would say in general, if you feel like you're really having these crashes, these low moments of energy, but also we've noticed anxiety or irritability or that can be like your blood sugar is very high. People will report some anxiety symptoms when glucose levels are running very high. They're jittery, they're uncomfortable, and then their glucose is crashing down and they feel foggy, brain foggy, low energy, very tired, constantly craving a snack, that kind of stuff. Those are some of those indications that, something might be off. And it doesn't need to be anything, horrible or anything like that, but just that, there could be, there's room for improvement, that we can take a closer look as to what you're having at your meals. When are you exercising? What are your stress levels? All of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
That's good stuff. And I think too, it's important to understand, and maybe you could talk about this because I'm sure you've seen a lot of data. Not everybody responds to the same foods the same ways, right? That's kind of why programs like this exist, so that people can see their bio-individuality of, this is how my metabolism works. This is how I react to this food. Have you seen that? Have you seen lots of variations in how people react to different foods? And what about like foods people expect to have high glucose responses to? Is that varied as well?
Absolutely. That is one of the biggest, I think also motivators for doing a program like this is that not everyone is the same. And we like to say, for your science-based people in your audience, it's an N=1 experiment, right? Yes. You are the only person in the experiment and it's all about you. And the way I respond to oatmeal is going to be different than the way you respond to oatmeal because my body type is different than yours. My stress level is different. I'm either exercising before, after, all of that is very different. So for me to tell you what to eat based on what I think is not helpful at all, right? I need to see how your body is responding to the food that you have available and frankly, you like to eat, because at the end of the day, if I tell you to eat salmon and broccoli every day, you're going to go, no, thank you. So absolutely, it's this N=1 experiment, which I think is really interesting about nutrition, medicine. A lot of people, like Oura rings, all the trackers, Apple watches, like people really want to know how they are responding to whatever they are doing in their lives. And I think this is just another way to go about it, but really in particular when it comes to nutrition and exercise and stress. And I think people are always very shocked to see how their bodies respond to stress. People are always like, wait, I didn't eat anything. Why did my glucose go up? And I was like, well, what were you doing around that time? And they're like, oh, well, I was in a board meeting or I had to do a presentation or, I got a bad phone call. I had to pick my cat up at the vet. I don't know, something like that. And people and they're like, oh my gosh, and their glucose went high. And it's just really interesting. I think people feel like, especially women, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea how my body was physically responding to the normalcy, the norms that I have in my life right now. So that's a really big, I think, aha moment. And 100%, in terms of responding to different foods, I think people are always like, I had ice cream, and a lot of times ice cream doesn't spike them, and they're like, did I get away with murder? They're like, how did I cheat the system here with the ice cream? But other stuff will send their glucose skyrocketing, and they're like, it was just popcorn or it was sushi, and stuff like that they're not familiar with what's going on, or even their response to caffeine. Some people respond to caffeine as a stimulant by releasing glucose, right? Like that cortisol stimulus, and their glucose will go up and they don't realize what's going on. That's why they need a mid-morning snack, or that's why they're so hungry for lunch so early and stuff like that. So it really put some of the pieces together of the puzzle for them.
I love that.
So interesting.
So Kay and I did an episode series way back when, at the beginning of this podcast. We tested out the keto diet.
Yep.
And we were doing blood glucose monitoring. She was using the urine test strips. Because I'm not bothered by needles and she is. We thought we'll just try both.
Yep.
Anyway, so we were following the keto diet and measuring. I would measure fasting glucose in the morning and then glucose after a meal and kind of just track it throughout the day and seeing how the keto diet was affecting the blood sugar.
Yep.
And at the time, my husband and I were going through some issues with infertility, and I had a big appointment coming up at the fertility clinic. And my resting blood glucose, or my like fasted blood glucose, was, once I got into the keto diet, was generally in the high 70s, low 80s. That's typically where it was first thing in the morning before I exercised, like right out of bed. And then the morning of this appointment, as it's coming up, that I'm kind of just dreading, right? Because it's not really a fun appointment that I'm looking forward to. The morning of this appointment, I like wake up and my fasting blood glucose is like 101 because I was so stressed out about the fact that we're even at this point in our lives that we're having, like there was so much going into it. Yes. So what you said about stress, and I was like, at the time, I'm like, what in the world is happening in my body? Am I dying? Because
because we weren't connecting that psychological effect on our biology. Like we thought, it was
like a few days that then I realized, oh, I was so stressed out about that appointment. I wonder if stress impacts my blood sugar. And then I started doing research and I'm like, oh, it totally impacts my blood sugar. Wow, how cool is that? Like I actually saw this physical manifestation, and it's not like I was thinking, oh, this stress is harming my health. It's not like I woke up thinking that. I just saw this indicator of it. So I think that there are things that maybe could be kind of insidiously hurting our health that we're not even aware of. And maybe in our brains, we're like, I'm not that stressed out. It's fine. I can handle this. But we aren't aware of how much it's really impacting our body. And that having that data of like a continuous blood glucose monitoring can help you have a call to action of, oh, actually, I might not be handling stress as well as I thought I was. Maybe I can incorporate some meditation. Maybe I can work on my sleep. Maybe I can do a relaxing yoga routine today. I think it's so cool to have that data at your fingertips.
Yes, the stress impacting our biology, that is like wild to me. Like in our glucose, that is such a cool revelation. Like cool, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like woo-woo science. I mean, like this is not, I think some people think like the functional medicine is like stress and mindfulness and meditation. I'm like, but like, there's physical hard evidence, like, that shows this. And it's so important, men and women alike. I mean, I have people with all different kinds of professions and, nurses and doctors and lawyers and, it impacts all of us, or just trying to get your kids to school. I have so many people that it's like, in the morning and then their drop off, they're back to normal. And I'm like, I get you. It is stressful. It's hard to get it all together.
You're like, oh my God, did you just eat plain white rice and a bowl of sugar for breakfast? No, my kid was late for the bus.
Yeah. The same. I should have had the cereal and had someone pick up my kid. That would have been the same. That's so funny. Because I do heart rate variability on my watch, and same thing. I always had good numbers, but there was always a certain time it was super low, and then I figured out, looking at it, that was like my one stressful meeting every week, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to change that meeting. Anyway, it's funny how our body reacts to all of that. This is so fascinating.
So there are other health issues too that monitoring your blood glucose could be important for. Can you talk about some of those and then how they're connected to like our blood sugar? Like other health issues. What other health issues besides things like PCOS? Like that's an obvious blood sugar like disorder, or diabetes or prediabetes. What other health issues can be connected to our blood sugar, and how can our blood sugar impact the outcomes of those?
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yes, I would say. So I mentioned a little bit before, like autoimmune issues. And so it's really when the body is, in an inflammatory state, maybe from something else, or even cardiac issues, all of that kind of stuff. The hormones of your body are working 24/7 to keep your body kind of in this homeostasis, right? To keep yourself, the system moving in general. And so if something is off, if your body is, again, an autoimmune flare, whatever it is, a gut health issue, something like that, clearly the body is fighting something over here. And if you're not treating it, or if you're feeding the system with the wrong, too much of the fuel, or, whatever it is, you can exacerbate what else is going on in your system. And so, not necessarily that it's like allergies or intolerances, that kind of thing, but just that, if you are taking in a highly refined carbohydrate diet and your body is working really hard to pump out the insulin, and your body's working really hard to find a place to use it, and there's no muscle storage for it to use it, right? You're overloading your liver, you're storing it in your liver. You're going to run into some problems over time, right? Mm-hmm. And so what we found is being able to see that picture of what's going on in your body can help you translate that into, making those tests and those swaps and those changes in order to help what other, issues might be going on currently in your body. Again, we see it a lot with women and their hormones, and even men with low testosterone, when they can start to change, what's going on in terms of their blood glucose levels, and really even things out and have a more steady cadence. Again, we never want it to be a flat line of glucose, right? Like some people come to us and they've been strictly following a ketogenic diet. They want their glucose to be at, 65 all day long. That's not our goal for everyone, right?
Yeah, not really like life sustaining.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But again, we also don't want these giant, I like to say we want gentle ocean waves, not tsunamis, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't want these huge mountains and these big crashes afterwards either. So all of that kind of evening things out can help even out some of your other problem areas that are going on.
Does Nutrisense have a suggestion? Like, okay, like let's say I get the glucose monitor and I'm reading a pamphlet. Is it going to be like, we don't want you to eat donuts, or are they like eat veggie, then protein and the donut and then exercise? Or is there kind of guidelines that they kind of suggest for you, or is it so bio individual? Like, how does that look?
It's totally there's no one pathway, right? Okay. There's no like, okay, this week you're going to do this or that. I like to say, take the sensor out for a ride, have the donuts, see what happens.
Okay, collect the data. Okay.
Right. And some people, again, like we said, some people are really surprised, right? Like I had an orange once sitting at my desk mid-morning and my glucose has never gone higher. Wow. Because I was sitting down and I hadn't done anything and I had a naked carbohydrate, right? Yeah. My glucose never went higher than with that one giant navel orange. And I think sometimes that, that's a shocker for people, but it's like, I would never have known that. So I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I saw the orange. I'm glad I see what a donut looks like. I'm glad I see what a stressful phone call. I like to see what a fasted workout looks like. I like to see what a fed workout looks like. Mm-hmm. Being open to experimentation, being open to using your body as a bit of a test those are the people that get the most out of this program. If you come in and you're like, okay, I'm going to be really great and I'm going to eat like 30 grams of carbohydrate every day and that's it. It's like, oh, well, you will see lovely. What else can we do here? Yeah. But I think that's not sustainable in real life. And so what we want is that the people that are using our program, they understand how to be metabolically flexible. They know how to flex into times, where they might be lower in carbohydrates, and they know how to flex in to times of higher carbohydrate and how to make the best choices when you are having carbohydrates, because that's life, right? Like you want to have birthday cake, you want to have a donut, you want to have holiday cookies. Like, let's find the best way to have that. Let's optimize it for you as opposed to optimizing it, for the general population. So there's no one pathway, but we definitely want people to test out all the different things so that they can see, what their body does with it.
Yeah. I'm just out of my own curiosity. What are some foods that would that people would be surprised that oftentimes you see spike blood sugar? Because you mentioned like an orange, and that wouldn't have necessarily crossed my mind either. I mean, I know fruit has, sugar, but we often think about the fact that it's got fiber and things that can slow down that blood glucose response. So what are some foods that you often see kind of trigger high blood glucose that might be surprising?
Yeah, I think sushi is a big one, and oatmeal are two big ones that people are always like, what? I love my oatmeal, And again, it's not about never having oatmeal or never having sushi. It's just finding a way to add some protein before you have it, all of those, as you were talking about before, just finding ways to do that. So I would say oatmeal is a big one because people generally eat a pretty big amount of it, or they're eating like the instant oats, which hit your system pretty quickly. So it can cause kind of a sharp rise and fall. And a lot of people are maybe adding some honey or maple syrup or, like some other things to it, not really realizing that all compounds into a high amount. And it also, I think a lot of times people are very surprised when they see cereal. It's also this thing that, again, they might not know about, but when you're hitting your system, an empty system, when you're breaking your fast with a breakfast, your system has nothing, there's nothing in there. And so for you to then hit it with some easily digestible carbohydrates, there's nothing to sort of buffer that. So all of a sudden their glucose is shooting up, and they're like, this is the smoothie I have every day. And I was like, yeah, well, look at what you put in your smoothie. I mean, it's all healthy stuff, but it's all carbohydrate, and you're hitting your system with it right away. So it's about learning how to, manage portion sizes of your oatmeal, or, having a hard-boiled egg before you have your oatmeal. Again, we're not into elimination. We're just trying to mitigate and to make some changes.
Interesting.
That's cool. I like that. It's I'm sure you're familiar with Jessie, the glucose goddess. I love her.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's kind of based that way too. And she's always reporting on her continuous blood glucose monitoring. She's always saying like, here is this food compared to that food. And of course it's all her data. So it's very bio-individualized to hers, but I think it's so helpful. Like if you want to have that plate of pasta, here's like a plate of pasta on its own, and this is what it did to my blood glucose. And here's a plate of pasta where I had a salad with apple cider vinegar on it before, and like protein with the pasta. This is what it looked like. So I think, it's, again, part of that kind of 80-20 lifestyle that we always recommend on our podcast is 80% of the time you're making good decisions for your health, and 20% of the time, you allow yourself a little bit more freedom. And it really is part of that. Like if you want to have that special occasion meal, just know how to keep it from totally spiking your blood sugar, because it's not about deprivation. It's about not feeling like total poo the next day.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Okay, I love your personal story and things like that. So I want to ask a personal question about what you eat. So you do your blood glucose. I know you don't have diabetes, but what do you eat on a normal level? You feel good. And don't worry if it doesn't represent what Nutrisense says. Unless you have like 12 beers at lunch every day. Don't say that.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. I had 3 before we started this podcast.
Yeah. We should have done that. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's the follow-up episode where you guys show me your data and you're like, this is me. And then we can analyze your data on the podcast.
Yes.
Things that I eat. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. Life is like completely, like nutty. But I really try hard to like cook as much as I can. And with kids, I don't know, like you kind of just throw a lot at them. I kind of make them eat what I want. Otherwise they have to just go to bed. But it's, I really have learned to emphasize protein in a way that I never did before. I've learned to incorporate fiber in ways that I never have before because of the glucose spike. I walk a lot more than I did before. I get up and I move around a lot more than I did. I wouldn't say that my portion sizes have changed or anything like that. I just eat things like in a different order. I try and keep more fiber on hand than I had before. And I really try and eat like my protein first. So I would say not much like actual choices have been any different. But I find that that's with my very busy schedule, I can make those changes easiest, right? I can add more nuts and seeds. I can eat the hard-boiled egg before I have, the sandwich, whatever it is, I can eat that stuff first, but I'm still kind of going through my day as fast as I have to.
Yeah. Well, you've alluded to it a few different times, and Kay and I we have a podcast episode for anybody who wants to listen specifically to this topic, but where we talk about some hacks for helping to balance your blood sugar and different things that you can do. Mm-hmm. But I think in the sake of this episode, it'd be fun to revisit that topic. Do you have any tips and tricks for helping balance your blood sugar? You've already mentioned a few things, walking and
walking
the order of your food, but maybe you could we could spend a dedicated amount of time right now on some of those hacks.
Yeah.
Perfect. So the first one that I always talk about, and I have a super lame saying, and my husband rolls his eyes every time I say it, but and it's not branded by Nutrisense. I came up with it on my own.
Ooh, look at you.
It's after you eat, move your feet. And so I always
like
tell people, I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, it is free. Anyone can do it. You can move around your house. You can walk up and down the stairs. You can get a dog, take it for a walk.
Yep.
Borrow someone else's dog and take it for a walk. Like treadmill, they're not that expensive. Like just after you eat, move your feet. And I think that is fundamental, right? Anyone can do that. You can park far away from the restaurant. You can walk around the mall. You can frankly have a walking meeting with someone and eat while you're walking, whatever. So that's my fundamental trick, because when you think about it logically, I think a lot of times people can get really wrapped up in the science and this amount and that amount and which macro is this. And I'm like, fundamentally, you're taking in energy, and fundamentally you need to use that energy. That's just like how the body works. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to count calories, and I don't want to like quantify it too much. Just understand that our bodies were meant to take in food and to move. Mm-hmm. Our bodies were not meant to just take in food and sit, right? So, and there's also a host of other wonderful benefits: cardiovascular benefits, digestive benefits, mental health benefits. Like just move more. Right?
Is there like an amount of time to move that is best, or types of movement that's best?
We always say like start with like 10 to 15 minutes of a brisk walk. If that's not possible, like that's not fine. Do like, a minute of squats and something depending on, what's going on. But yeah, like if you can test that out, that is so cool to see, right? Like you can test out like a Mexican date night, sitting, driving home, sitting, watching Netflix. You can test out Mexican date night, like plus a walk afterwards. And you're like, oh my God, I slept better. I feel better. Like you can just see your glucose looking so much nicer after it. So, so I always say 10-minute brisk walk if you can. Anything other than that is lovely. Another hack, like I mentioned before, that I think is really easy and you can do anywhere. You can do it at a family barbecue. You can do it at a pizza restaurant. You can do it anywhere, is eat protein first. So you can implement that anywhere in the world, any type of meal you're eating, wherever you are, you can eat your protein first. Or as you guys were talking about, you can eat your vegetables first, basically just leaving your carbohydrates for the end. And again, I like to just say you're buffering the system, you're priming the pump, however you want to think about it. Like you're letting your body start to absorb the protein first. And so the body's working at that, and you're not hitting it with a huge load of glucose to start. Right. And I have I've seen it so many times where someone has, the chips at the end of their meal with salsa as opposed to at the beginning of their meal. Right. All that kind of stuff is really, really powerful. Apple cider vinegar, as you mentioned, is great. That doesn't necessarily work for everyone. We've seen in the data, for some people, it can be really helpful, not for everyone. It's also like, you might not have it on hand before you go out to dinner or something like that. Certainly you can order it, on a salad or something. As much as you are in control of having apple cider vinegar, it's a great thing to incorporate if you want. There's like certain supplements like berberine, things like that you can try. Again, it's not really for everyone all the time. But I would say the other major thing that I work on a lot of times with people is breaking your fast. However long your fast is, even just, an overnight, breaking your fast with protein, fat, and fiber. Again, it's that priming the pump, hitting, not hitting your system with glucose, and then eating earlier, finishing your meal earlier at night. It's that chrono nutrition. I think you guys have talked about that as well. This whole really interesting line of research where the body is really linked to your circadian rhythms of sunlight and how it can process food best. And really, we are more insulin resistant or less insulin sensitive at night. And so if you can just have your meal an hour earlier, you will see better glucose data. So that's one of the things that I've also incorporated is eating much earlier at night than I used to.
So smart. Yep. We've been hearing that from a lot more interviewees, and we've started doing it at home, and it works magic.
Yeah, it really has been. I mean, and I go to bed kind of early because I typically am, nursing my daughter to sleep, and then usually I fall asleep with her.
At like
so
8:30.
It's like 8:30. 8:30. I mean, and then sometimes, she's waking, just recently she's hit this sleep progression. She's almost 6 months. She's hit this sleep progression where she's waking up in the middle of the night, and sometimes she takes like an hour or 2 hours to go back to sleep. And so I'm tired. So now I'm finishing my meals up. Like my poor husband is eating at he works from home. He's like eating at his desk for dinner because I'm like cooking up dinner at like 4 p.m.
I'm like, I'm starving.
Because I'm like, I need to eat by 4 because I'm going to be asleep in bed by 8.
Like, you need your 3 hours.
I need at least 3 or 4 hours before I go to bed.
That is so funny.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
Do you give your kids protein before the carbs? Or is it one of those things where really we just got to feed our kids and we'll worry about their insulin when they're older, It
is funny. We have like an ongoing debate in my family. I'm like, well, I always try and make sure they have protein with their meal.
Yeah, but that's just key. Yep.
Yeah. But it's very funny. I'm like, well, what's your protein at the meal? And they're like, the peppers. I was like, no. They're like, the avocado. I was like, wrong again.
Friends, wrong.
I've literally had that same conversation with my husband.
Yes.
So no, but I really try to not impose, I follow sort of the idea of like, I provide them with a really healthy framework in the house, healthy options, but I want them to feel the autonomy and, the agency to make their own kind of choices as to how much and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So.
Yep. We're the same and it does work well. So, yep. Until like the day, like if one of them does get diabetes, then we're locking that on and we'll figure it out, Yep.
Whole different game. Yeah.
Yep. You did mention looking at your workouts, fasted exercise versus fed exercise. Are there types of exercise that are best for controlling blood glucose, and what are they?
Yeah.
So what's really interesting is that you had asked earlier about things that are surprising that people see in their glucose. And so when people do a high intensity workout, fasted, and they haven't eaten anything, they will generally see their glucose go up. And that is because the body has to pull it out of storage in order to provide the energy to fuel your workout. And people are like, this is so crazy. Why is my glucose going up? I was yeah. And I'm like, well, it's probably pretty intense and you just didn't have enough readily available. So the body had to pull it out of your liver or muscles to fuel what you had going on. And generally, those spikes aren't that high and you come back down pretty quickly. So,
and it might be necessary.
Exactly. It's the only way you could get through it. And generally, I think it kind of depends on the athlete, right? If it's like a real serious athlete, like you could talk about fueling, or if it's like someone that's training for a big race, they're doing their first marathon, something like that. Like you could talk to them about fueling properly before their different types of workouts. But in general, all exercise is good for your glucose. All of it, whether it's high intensity, whether it's a walk, whether it's a jog, all of it is good for your glucose, because eventually, even if your glucose does spike from a high intensity workout, the rest of the day your glucose will decline and even out and look better. So that zone 2 kind of steady state cardio, you'll see either a flat line or a dip down afterwards. But just think of it, your body's using up the energy that you put into it for good use.
Mm-hmm.
So move your feet, people.
Yes.
After you eat.
After you eat.
I remember I locked it in. Okay, now I get to talk my details
Yes,
of,
now,
of it,
absolutely.
of the situation. So, yeah, do you suggest that a person 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 10 years lifetime? And then also, what does it look like? Like, what are the costs of it? If for someone, if they were to actually go out and practically do this.
Yeah. I think, listen, obviously, if you want me to wear my marketing hat, I will say
Yeah.
3 to 6 months are,
Yeah.
are really, really key. But I truly actually believe that if you are coming into this, even the people that come into this with the highest health knowledge that feel like they really understand what's going on, 1 month of data is really interesting and powerful. But when you can see those trends over time, and frankly, we're all so busy, you might not even have the time to experiment with it as you would like to. That I think people feel like they just they didn't have the time. They were like, oh, I really wanted to test this thing out and I didn't get to see it, or oh, I didn't really even think that this was my goal until I started to see the data, and now I actually want to look at this instead of what I thought this was. Or so I would say 3 to 6 months is really great. Plus, as we all know, behavior change takes a while, right? So just a month, like, maybe you can commit to eating dinner earlier, but like you might not. And so it's really hard to institute those behavior changes that really last. And you can then see your data, right? And so also you've got the accountability aspect to it. You've got someone guiding you, but maybe you still need help because you have even more questions or different questions or something like that going on. So I would love everyone to be on it for a 12-month plan, but I think, that's not always sustainable or reasonable. Although we do have plenty of people. I have people that have been with me for almost 2 years now. And we just keep going back and forth. Lots to talk about, lots to learn. It's really about what you put in, you get out from it, right? And so our 3-month commitment plan is $299 a month, and our 6-month commitment plan is $250 a month. And again, that comes with 2 CGMs a month. You get the first month of dietitian support after that, and you get our app filled with stuff. We have like weekly webinars you can log into, like live webinars. We do a lot of different content stuff for people.
And that's pretty competitive pricing,
Yeah,
because
it
I
really
have
is.
compared a few companies that offer continuous blood glucose monitoring services. And so I would say that, especially with like you've mentioned, you guys have a lot of actual live people as opposed to AI helping offer health advice. I think, for our listeners, that is, as I've discovered through my research, that is actually a pretty decent deal for you guys. So for anybody who's looking at it, I think that's a good option.
That's really cool. And I love this knowledge. I love that we have technology in 2023, that this is so incredible that a person can at home in the moment, look at their phone and know what their body's doing. Like us from the 90s guys, we wouldn't even dream that's even possible. Like that.
Yeah. You're like, where's my pager? Like, just page me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Give them my BlackBerry. I don't know. Yeah.
Blackball? I know. I love
Yeah. This is really cool information that you brought to us, and this was so interesting, and I definitely want to play with it. I am less adventurous than my husband, but man, I would love to know his data, and then I'd want to compete with his data. So maybe I'd have to stab myself with one sometime. But yeah,
have her
thank you.
sneak up behind you and just, put it on when you're not looking.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah. You could probably ice it first. It wouldn't hurt. But y'all say it doesn't even hurt. I'm a real baby.
He's a big wimp.
I'm a big wimp.
If you get one, I'll just put it on for you. You won't even know. I'll put on like Harry Potter or something on the TV. You won't even know what's happening.
Oh, well, that won't do it for me, but we'll find something. Good. Well, yeah, thank you so much for all this knowledge. And is there anything more that you feel like our listeners need to know before we let you go?
Yeah.
No, I think just to reiterate the fact that it's really individual to the person. And so if you feel like you're struggling with something, or you're just, off, or maybe you're just getting a little bit older and wondering, gosh, what is going on? This is a great way to just take some time to put yourself and your health and your own health priorities first, and to have someone really help guide you, even for a short period of time, to help you learn more about your own body. And everyone can benefit from that. Everyone can benefit from the knowledge that you can take away from this. So I encourage everyone to just be open-minded and be willing to try it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same.
It's incredible.
Okay.
Awesome. Good. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. This has been so knowledgeable for me, and I know our listeners have loved it. And for everyone listening, go be renegades.
Go be renegades. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Nutrition Podcast.
Please keep in mind that this podcast is an educational service that provides general health information. The content on this podcast is not a substitute for direct, personal, professional medical care and diagnosis. You should always talk to your doctor before making a dietary or lifestyle change. Go be renegades!
Go be renegades!